A very popular guest is retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Aguilar, retired U.S. soldier and a former hero of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. He blew the whistle on the gangsters who were killing the Palestinian refugees as they queued for food. He later disrupted the American Congress, as many other distinguished soldiers are beginning now to do. Lieutenant Colonel, thanks very much for joining us again. I wonder if you'd give us your considered military view on the state of the war so far before we turn to the political war that must now be going on under the surface, if not over the surface, in Washington itself.
Thank you, George. Thank you for having me on for this very important conversation during this very critical time in not only our nation here in the United States, but also for the world. And to provide my military assessment or my analysis of this is, from serving in the military for 25 years, being in wars on the ground in this region, and being involved in the contingency planning or con plans specifically for a war with Iran. And I can tell you clearly that the United States lost this war from the very first rounds that were fired. The United States did not go in prepared. We did not go in prepared with alliances or a coalition. We did not go in prepared with enough armament. We did not go in prepared with the composition and disposition of troops and assets in the region. We markedly underestimated the opponent, being Iran, not only their direct capability with missiles, ballistic missiles, but especially their drone asymmetric warfare capability. But we also underestimated their resolve and their ability to continue this fight. I think that in the war room, when Donald Trump was laying out his plans for this, he probably had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, saying, "Sir, this is not a good idea. We are low on ammunition. We are low on strategic assets. We're putting 2 carriers in the region. And if you've seen the news lately, now we're putting a 3rd. That's not a sign of winning. We're losing." And but just surrounding him even closer, you had Pete Hegseth, Stephen Miller, Marco Rubio, and others, war hawks, warmongers, telling him to do this, do this, do this. And we went in wholly underprepared. And I think that Trump was told that this would last 2 to 4 days, and then maybe 1 to 2 weeks, maybe 3 to 4 months. Now we're looking at till next Christmas. And I think that we're about to get ourselves involved in a very long, unending war, very similar to Iraq, very similar to Afghanistan, but it's going to be bloodier, and it's going to cost America a lot more than those wars did. And I don't think America, the average American back home here in the United States, because quite frankly, haven't been paying attention, is ready for the consequences to come. This will change the nature of the United States in the global the global position.
Sir, all the signs are, and you've just adumbrated them, but there are more. All the signs are that this was a spasm by Donald Trump, that it was a sudden and impulsive decision. And indeed, Catherine Levitt, his spokesperson, actually said he did it based upon his feelings. So is this just down to the idiosyncrasy, to say the least, of your current president, or does it mark something more meaningful, a fundamental shift in the balance of power in the world, vis-a-vis the global south, vis-a-vis American power?
Well, I think it is both, in the fact that this was a spasm of hubris, and that the president of the United States and his inner cabinet felt that we could use overwhelming power, that Israel and the United States would be able to wipe out the entire chain of command and political and military leadership within Iran overnight, and that would be it. Again, sorely underestimated. And now that this underestimation has now been put into real world action with bombs and bullets and aircraft carriers and jets and all the things that go into the reality of war that this president and his cabinet do not understand, it will change the global presence of not only the United States, but also in the region. What I think that Iran has done very strategically in the last 24 to 48 hours, in that they immediately, in their response to not only launching strikes against Tel Aviv, but immediately in their response launched against U.S. bases in the surrounding 16 nations. And I mean from, not just the ones that touch Iran, but the entire region from Azerbaijan all the way down to Yemen and the Horn, that to send a message that said, if you are going to house U.S. troops and launch missiles at us from these bases, you are a legitimate military target. And by international law and by every aspect of international law, they are exactly correct. If a nation is housing a belligerent in conflict, such as the United States or Israel, and we are using those bases to conduct intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, counter-reconnaissance, counterfire, missile launches, any of the sort, it makes that location a legitimate military target. So the offer that Iran put on the table to say, hey, we will stop firing missiles and drones into your country if you tell the Americans to leave. From a strategic standpoint, in terms of reshaping the Middle East, that was a 4D chess level move against our president still trying to figure out how to open the box of checkers.
Yes, and of course, there will be never glad, confident morning again in these 16 countries. They have learned that American military and intelligence presence in their country is not an asset, but a liability. It doesn't protect them. It guarantees them enmity and violence. And the United States hasn't even made an effort to defend the countries that have paid them so much money, hundreds of billions over decades for protection. As some wag pointed out, well, we always paid the Genovese family in New York, but at least when we called on them, they lived up to their responsibilities as a protection racket. But the United States has completely abrogated its responsibilities.
Yes, this sends a message not only to GCC partners in the region that the United States has not only the ethical and moral position to protect, but we also have written agreements, specifically, for example, with Qatar. We have a written military agreement with Qatar that if they're ever attacked by anyone, that we would come to their defense. Well, we didn't when Israel attacked them, and we sure as heck aren't now. And during the opening salvos or the opening hours of this conflict, the United States, rather than using the assets in these places, and remember the assets we keep in Kuwait, in Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, in Qatar, our terminal high altitude aerial defense, our THAADs and Patriot missile systems. Instead of defending with this umbrella of protection over these GCC partners that house us, we directed everything to protect Israel. And in doing so, left them wide open, but also left U.S. soldiers on these bases. And a clear example of that is the Tactical Operations Center in the base in Kuwait that was hit directly by a missile. They got no forewarning. There was no siren. There was no alert. They got hit with a missile, no time to get out of the building. And that, so not only is this administration making the deliberate effort to not protect our own soldiers in the region, but not protect the GCC partners that we are located with, that we are considered tenants of in their countries. We directed it all towards Israel, knowing that we did that, and didn't even bother to let these host nations know. That is a betrayal of no other. And it sends a message to the rest of the world that the United States is not a good partner.
You segue nicely to what was my next question, because it turns out they're no longer even able to protect Israel, their number one military base in the region, in the world. They have a whole country which is an American military base called Israel. And Iran is now hitting it at will, without resistance. I've seen the videos. I've seen the ballistics landing with not a trace of anti-missile defense in the sky.
Yes, and a lot of the truth of the news on the ground, the United States, at least back here in the U.S. through legacy media, has put an iron grip on any type of information coming out of what's really happening in the region. Back here in the United States, you have a lot of people think that the Iron Dome is just deflecting everything. No missiles are falling on American bases. All we have are 6 casualties, and this war is going splendid. But the truth is, for anybody that looks past legacy media or actually looks past the headlights of their car to look into what's actually happening, you can see that, yes, Tel Aviv and Israel is being decimated and pummeled with no defense. The Iron Dome has failed. But we also, we don't have the missiles to give them to reconstitute the Iron Dome. Remember, the Iron Dome is not this, and you know this, but for the average listener, the Iron Dome is not some magic umbrella where a missile comes in and it just obliterates. You have to then identify it, track it, and then fire a missile to hit it, sometimes 2 or 3. So not only in the cost per missile in terms of a $12 million interceptor taking out a $30,000 drone, but we don't have any left. And that sends a message to the rest of these countries in the region that Iran is serious about. If you continue to allow the United States to fire from your countries, this is what will happen to you. And they're all looking at Tel Aviv and they're all seeing what's happening. It looks like Gaza.
It does indeed. Now, how would it change things, Lieutenant Colonel, if the Iranian claim, and they've made it at the highest level, that they are now holding 173 U.S. service personnel as prisoners of war from the Delta Force, no less. If that turns out to be the truth, how will that affect the course of the war?
Well, see, this really changes the calculus. And I've seen on open source reporting and local reporting, because, I live a stone's throw away of Fort Bragg, where the Joint Special Operations, Delta Force, the 82nd Airborne Division are all housed and stationed. And, you can see the change in the environment when, the thousands of soldiers that normally live in your town are gone, right? A clear indicator. You don't need intelligence to see that. So knowing that they are deployed, knowing that they are there, knowing that we did move forces to the Iraqi border, knowing that I'm sure we have conducted some type of operation. I do not know the veracity in terms of the number of U.S. service members, specifically in special operations, that have been captured or killed. But I do know that there are some, and it's a larger number than what the administration is telling us. Could those potentially be components of Delta Force? Yes. I don't think that it would be 100 from Delta Force, because there's hardly even that many in a squadron. So it would probably be a complement of Delta Force, special forces, intelligence, guys on the ground, probably CIA, probably some component that was going in with Kurdish forces to start some kind of fifth column incursion to the north. And they underestimating the enemy, underestimating the terrain, underestimating the resolve of the Iranian military and the IRGC. So I do believe that there are a handful or a large number of Americans that are killed and or captured, and that will absolutely change the dynamic in the information space, but also politically, because this is going to make the United States look very bad. And we also know that, the United States has not had POWs in large-scale, high-intensity conflict since the Cold War, going back to perhaps Korea, Vietnam, Gulf War, when we had some POWs. That training has since become not used as much in terms of how that train. And I know this because I once in my career, I commanded the United States Army Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape course, where we teach these things. And though we continue to train it, it has somewhat, it hasn't been, we haven't had to do it. So there's going to be a lot of service members in a lot of risk, because this administration, I fear what this administration will not do when it comes to standing up to get their soldiers back. I think that Hegseth, I think that Donald Trump think that the way to get them back, or the way to enact revenge, would be to send more. We see the 82nd Airborne Division getting ready. The 82nd Airborne Division, remember, is an airborne unit. That means vertical envelopment. That means airborne, like Normandy. Into the terrain in Iran, bad idea. We've gone through these con plans. It will be a failure. But I don't trust this administration, and I absolutely think that they would try it. And it's going to lead to a lot more Americans dead, elite forces within the United States military being dead. And that is going to slap this administration right in the face. And I think Americans are going to really be up in arms about what we're going to start seeing that can't be hidden when it starts coming out through other sources like China, Russia, the United Kingdom, France, Canada, places that aren't necessarily being censored by the American administration.
What did Netanyahu mean today, do you think, when he promised the Iranian people a major surprise which would totally destabilize their country? And why is the strategic bomber that left England some hours ago headed for the Middle East? Are they really going to drop a nuclear bomb in the Persian Gulf?
I have absolutely no doubt that the United States and or Israel or in a joint operation are going to utilize a tactical nuke. And to paint the picture of that, this isn't the days of World War II where you saw the Enola Gay dropping this bomb and flying away. And I mean, nuclear weapons, especially tactical nuclear weapons, have become much more advanced. The problem with that is that because really when you look at it, Israel and the United States are running out of options. We are running out of missiles. When we run out of interceptor missiles and we have no defense, we're going to start losing aircraft carriers. We're going to start losing destroyers. We're going to start losing more service members in the region. All of our bases have been rendered inoperable, but we still have people there that are shuttered, hiding under bunkers. And when there's no more defense, when the THAADs and the Patriots and all systems are down, it is open season, and Iran will have the absolute upper hand in this. And when you consider that, the United States, Israel, won't have any options left. It's like going into a gunfight with not enough ammunition, but your opponent still has bullets. Well, now you got to either retreat and run away, or you got to start throwing grenades. So in this gunfight, Trump ain't going to retreat, so we're going to start throwing grenades. And so the only option we have in that is the tactical nuke. And here's what I'll say. Last week, off the coast of California, the United States fired full capable, one of its Minuteman III Doomsday ICBMs, nuclear-equipped intercontinental ballistic missile from California to the Marshall Islands. Fired it, tested it, and made a big deal about it. Simultaneously, this aircraft that you saw that took off recently, that is the 4 Echo Doomsday plane. But what's also another critical component in that aircraft is what really concerns me is the Echo 4 Charlie Night Watch plane. That plane is the command and control component to where if there's nuclear war and if strategic targets are hit, this aircraft through AI with pre-programmed targets can then execute the mission, call it like a dead switch, but it's in a plane. So we not only have this giant nuclear capable 4 Echo Doomsday plane, we also have the 4 Charlie Night Watch, which is the complementary command and control aircraft with that bomb-loaded aircraft. So that's what's really concerning. We have not just taken the cover off the old car in the garage. We've filled it up with gas. We've started it up to run. And now that's all that's left is to drive away. And I feel that this administration, especially under the influence of Netanyahu, will utilize a tactical nuclear bomb in the coming days. I fear that greatly, and I think it will happen.
It's almost impossible to believe that we're having this conversation and placing us in such uncharted waters since the end of World War II, at least. But what would the geopolitical implications be to the use of a nuclear weapon against Iran? Pakistan is next door, it's nuclear armed. Iran is allied with both Russia and China, both supremely armed with nuclear weapons. This is not likely to go unanswered. I postulated earlier, because I have a source that told me it, that in those circumstances, Russia would take Iran under its nuclear umbrella. I have no source in China that has opined, but from Russian sources, knowing the importance and significance of this, the taking of Iran under the nuclear umbrella of the Russian Federation might very well happen. And then we really could be on the brink of World War III, couldn't we?
Well, I think if you look at the pretenses and the theatrical trailer to World War One, World War One didn't just everybody got together and boom, Prince Ferdinand was assassinated and World War One started. All of the frictions, the tectonic plates and friction and pressure was already present. That's what's happening. The tectonic plates are hitting, the pressure is building, and one slip brings us into World War III. And I think this will be that slip. And I think when you look at already the alliances in the region, yes, Russia will bring Iran under its nuclear umbrella, as anyone would expect that they would. To think that they wouldn't is just being ignorant. But then you also have Pakistan already involved in now new nuclear agreements or mutual agreements with Saudi Arabia. You obviously have China in the mix that will start to build alliances in the region, and these alliances will start to form. We'll see the Entente, like we did in World War One, and the Axis. So what's really frightening is the way it looks right now is that Axis, the bad guys, the axis of evil in this is the United States and Israel. Well, the Entente is going to be China, Russia, Iran, potentially other nations that in the Gulf Coast that I think will side with that power dynamic, because we are not a good partner, and we are led by a honestly an irrational psycho in the White House. So people are starting to see the tea leaves here, and the United States is not invincible. And I am a patriot, and of course I don't want to see the United States be defeated militarily, and of course I don't want to see American servicemen and Americans die. But I'm also a realist who has been in war for 25 years. And I know that you can wish in one hand and defecate in the other and see which fills up first. And this administration is just wishing, and it is a bad strategy. And it's frightening, because I can see anyone that takes a hard look at this with an unbiased, objective look can see what's going to happen. And we are on the wrong side of it. And I think looking at the U.S. commander of Central Command, a 4-star general, Navy Admiral Brad Cooper, recently asked for a third carrier strike group. So now we've got the USS Bush. That's ironic, right? We're taking the USS Bush into the fight in the Persian Gulf. So now we're going to have the Bush, the Ford, and the Lincoln. And we have no other aircraft carrier to cover down. So the one that's sitting at port in Newport News, Virginia, isn't even ready. It's not even finished yet. And we're shipping it out to cover the Caribbean and part of the Indo-PACOM. We are in a bad situation. And it is because this administration took us into a war that we were not prepared for, that we shouldn't be fighting anyway. And that if you look at it, I am a just war theorist. I think that if you're going to go to war and you're going to start killing people and you're going to start putting blood, treasure, and assets and put the world in flame, that you should be doing it justly. And in just war theory, it should always be a last resort. There should be a just cause. There should be valid authority. There should be a probable solution or a probability of success. It should be proportional. There should be an exit strategy. None of those exist in this conflict. And that's because this administration dragged us into it. And it's shameful.
Finally, and I'm grateful for your time as always, sir. The market's open in the morning. It's likely the stock market will crash everywhere. Gas prices, petrol prices, we call them, are already $5 plus, when only days ago Trump was boasting that they were headed for half of that. And the impact of the oil and gas shortage hasn't even begun to bite. Britain has 2 days of natural gas in storage, and thereafter will have to buy at top dollar prices in Europe. And it's still winter and cold. This week is going to be an economic Armageddon. Might that force a change of direction from American politicians? If not from Trump, mightn't it bring Vance onto the field? Mightn't it bring Gabbard onto the field? Anybody really that wants to win the next election.
It's going to shake up politics here in the United States, obviously. I think from the perspective of the average American and the American voter, they're tired of both the Democrat and the Republican Party. They're two sides of the same coin. They're just as bad, just in their own ways. But to the market's point, yeah, the price of fuel has already gone up going into this weekend. It will go up again drastically on Monday. But let's not forget, not everyone, but a lot of people keep saying, well, why isn't China doing anything? Why isn't China doing anything? China is doing a lot, but China plays the long game. Not only does China have direct intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance ships in the region, basically saying, nanny, nanny, boo, boo, touch me, and we're going to war, and we can't do a thing about it. And they are feeding Iran exquisite intel that we can do nothing about. So there's that. But then China also overnight, going Friday before the markets closed, dumped, I think it was about 40 billion from their holding on U.S. stocks. So yeah, Monday is going to be a wake-up call. And I think in D.C., you're going to see politicians jumping ship. And what I say is that what I've told a lot of these politicians in D.C. in my visits over the last 8 months going up there every week is, oh, you're going to jump the ship, and I'm taking names. And that lifeboat you're in, you're going to be held accountable.